What is up, everybody? We're back. Corey used bloody history. So we're continuing on this theme of Galveston, which I really didn't even intend. I didn't intend to get to Galveston. We've done some talking about Galveston and David Ferry and David Ferry's fake trip. Excuse me. And so what I started this on was actually Jack Ruby, because Jack Ruby, most people don't realize this, but Jack Ruby, sometime after Oswald's arrested in the afternoon, he will then leave Dallas and go to Galveston. Well, he'll stop in Houston. He'll stop in Galveston. He'll go with Candy Barr because a blonde woman was seen at the Alamo Motel. Obviously, there's no other blonde fucking woman who it's going to be. See, most of these Kennedy idiots haven't even figured out that Jack Ruby went to Galveston, right? In Houston on Saturday, he was seen buying a gun, right? So now we have three sources of the alleged handgun that he shot Oswald with. Jim, I know we pulled the data on the handgun. Can we revisit that and figure out where that gun came from? So from Jack Ruby, it got us to Eva Grant. And from Eva Grant, it connected us to Breck Wall. Breck Wall is connecting us to Joe Peterson. Joe Peterson will connect us to Thomas McKenna, a.k.a. Robert McEwen. When the official story is using aliases, you know they're full of shit. Okay? So, Jim, let's do that also. Let's pull everything on Thomas McKenna and Robert McEwen. M-C-K-E-W-A-N, I think. But, so I'm of the absolute fucking rock solid belief that Breck Wall and Joe Peterson did not go to Galveston as per the official story. I am of the belief Jack Ruby went to Galveston as per the official story. And that the phone call was made from Breck Wall to Jack Ruby in Galveston, not the other way around. This is important because this goes to show that Breck Wall is a fucking liar, and Joe Peterson he'll be a liar too. And Jack Ruby was down there doing his thing. So, testimony of Joseph Alexander Peterson. Testimony of Joseph Alexander Peterson, taken 3:45 p.m., August 5th, 1964. The post office in Las Vegas. 301 Stewart Street. Do you solemnly swear you're going to tell the truth and all that good stuff? I do. Would you state your full name? Joseph Alexander Peterson. Have you ever been known by any other name? Joseph Jablanca. Was that the name under which you were born, sir? Yes, sir. You say it's been legally changed. Legally changed. My stepfather's name is Walter Peterson. When was your name changed from Jablanca to Peterson? November 65. I remember that well because that was when I was married. November of what? Oh, excuse me, 1946. What is your birthday? February 14th, 1924. Where were you born? Brooklyn, New York. Where have you lived since the time you were born? Let's see, I've lived in Flatbush, Rogers Avenue, 649 Rogers Avenue. Until when? Wait a minute, before that, 280 19th Street in Brooklyn. How long did you live in Brooklyn altogether? The family, all our lives. Me, I went in the service, came out and went to Jacksonville, Florida. Did you live in Brooklyn until you went into the service? Right. When did you go into the service? 1941. How long were you in the service? Till 1945. Where'd you live after leaving the service? 46. I went back home. Brooklyn? Right. How long did you live in Brooklyn after 46? Let's see, I guess a period about up until 1950. Where'd you live after 1950? New Orleans. How long did you live in New Orleans? 3 years. Where'd you live after that? Jacksonville. No, wait a minute. I didn't go back to Jacksonville. I visited Jacksonville. I went to New Orleans and then from New Orleans, Dallas. When? 50, 51, 52. Okay, let's go back to 1950. Were you living in Brooklyn at that time? Just before that time. Where'd you go in 1950? To New Orleans. Now, probably it was the end of 1950 because 1951 was so close. How long did you live in New Orleans? 2.5 to 3 years. And then I went to Dallas, Texas. I lived there ever since. In what year did you move to Dallas? That was about the end of 1953 or 1954. How long did you live thereafter in Dallas, Texas? Up to now. I went to, I went to Houston with the show last February. Up until last February, I was in Dallas, Texas. I was in the show in Houston, February, March, April, May, June. January, February, March, then came here. What's your present occupation? Producer. Of what? Co-producer of musical shows with Breck Wall. Where are you employed right now? Castaways Casino. Here in Vegas? Right, in Las Vegas. How long have you been in show business? Since about 1959. How long have you known Mr. Breck Wall? Since 59. How long, if at all, did you know Jack Ruby? I knew Jack Ruby, let me think now. Probably it was the last part of 61, and when we did one show there at his club, I believe it was 1961, I'm trying to figure. We went back to the Adolphus in 62. It was probably in 61. When you say one show, what did you mean by that? I did a musical review called Sticks and Stones there. How long did that last? 2 or 3 months, I guess. We had problems. What problems did you have? Well, a lot of disagreements. At the time, Jack was changing the club from, he was reopening it. It was called The Sovereign. He was making it into a private club. He wanted to do something different. We were successful across the street with our review. He talked to us about putting the show up there, going 50-50 on a business basis with the club, which we never received anything about. Did you ever enter into agreement with Jack Ruby wherein you were to have a 50-50 interest in it? Yes, this was written up with Vic Vickerson, his attorney. Victorson? Yes, Vic Victorson. How do you spell that? Victorson. Yes, the agreement was with him. It never held up, though. We got nothing. You never received any interest in the club. Not a thing. Did you ever endeavor to enforce that agreement? Yes, the only thing we ever got out of it was through a loan. I think Breck borrowed $300 to go to New York on a business trip. That's all the money we ever received out of it. Did you ever try to make Jack Ruby live up to the agreement in any other way? There was no use. Jack Ruby, in spite of our disagreements, he was kind of good-natured in a way. The best thing to do was to bow out quietly. Did you first meet Jack Ruby in approximately September 61 when you played Sticks and Stones? About that time, a little before that, he came to visit us at the club. When was that? September of 1960. Sometime around there. He came up like a lot of club owners do. I think when we reopened the club, he came up and visited us. We were introduced to him as Jack Ruby. That was all. After you terminated your business relationship with him when the show Sticks and Stones ended, how frequently, if at all, did you see him thereafter? He came and visited us quite a lot at the Century Room. He would come in when he had guests, big shot type of thing, wanted to be recognized. He was very nice. Did you have a cordial relationship, notwithstanding your prior difficulties? Right. Like I say, it was best to keep everything on a hello-goodbye basis. How frequently did you see him after 62? Well, normally, like bump into him, it was only across the street. We were living at the Adolphus, back and forth. It's hard to tell how many times. Did you ever have any more business dealings with him? No. Once we went into bankruptcy, Breck and I, and when all friendship failed, we went to Jack Ruby and he came through. He was real fine, loaned us money. We paid him back. How much money did he loan you? It wasn't exactly a loan. It was a thing holding on costumes we had for the show. It was $400. To your knowledge, did Jack Ruby have any association with any of the criminal elements? Well, if you want to go by hearsay, yes. But actually, I don't know of any. In fact, he was in thicker with the police in Dallas than anybody else I knew because they were always in his place. What hearsay are you referring to? I'm talking about any hearsay because of his character. Automatically, people would take him as a thug. What aspect of his character would cause people to do that? Outward appearance. Anything beside outward appearance? No, Jack, in spite of our differences, he was a good man. Did you ever see him associate with any of the criminal element personally? No. To your knowledge, was Jack Ruby a member of any organization which advocated for the forceful overthrow of the U.S. government? No. To your knowledge, was any member of his family a member of any such organization? I know nothing about his family except I had met his sister. To your knowledge, were any of his friends or associate members of any subversive organization? No, not to my knowledge. When did you see Jack Ruby most recent prior to November 22nd, 1963? I guess it was before we went to Galveston. Sometime before then, I couldn't peg it down. I'm sure we saw him. Like I say, we saw him out on the street. Next thing was the call, and that was it. You don't recall seeing him specifically on any special date prior to the day of the assassination? No, I don't. But do you think in a general way you must have seen him because he was in the area? Right. Do you recall the day of the assassination? Oh, yes. Tell me as specifically as you can recollect what you did on that day. Well, there was going to be the parade. We went down and stood on the marquee of the Adolphus Hotel. We were there with some newspaper people we knew and everybody at the hotel. And the president passed by. We came back in the lobby. Next thing we knew, we heard on the television he'd been shot. That was it. What did you do next, if anything? As well as I can remember, either we called or went upstairs, told the rest of the kids in the cast, those that weren't out, just astonishment. Everybody was in the lobby, just moving around. Did you leave the hotel on that day? No. What time did you go to sleep that night, if you recall? Well, that night we didn't have a show. I don't believe we had a show. No, we didn't have a show that night. They canceled it for 3 nights. That's when we went to Galveston. When did you go to Galveston specifically? Let me think. When was the 22nd? What day was that? 22nd was a Friday. It was that night. Did you go to Galveston Friday or Saturday? I'm not sure whether it was Friday or Saturday because they canceled the show. I think it might have been the next day. I don't know. I could not be sure. You see, here we go. Doesn't know if we went on Friday or Saturday. When was the phone call? The phone call was Saturday. They arrived that evening. They should have gone on Saturday. But he says they went that night. He doesn't know. Because he doesn't know. Because they didn't go anywhere. Do you recollect what you did the next day or before you went to Galveston, if in fact it was that day you went to Galveston? The next day before we went to Galveston? Yes, you've told me. Let's go back to Friday. You told me you stayed around the hotel the balance of the day. Yes. Then you say you went to Galveston either Friday or Saturday. Yes. Tell me, to the best of your recollection, everything that you did before you went to Galveston from the time of the assassination on. Well, we stayed at the hotel, found out if they were going to have a show. This is why I think it was Friday now. Asking Andy Anderson, I think we picked up and left that night. Did you make any telephone calls that day? Breck might have called his mother in Galveston. I don't know. What are the names of the people you refer to as his mother and father? Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Tom McKenna. They're not his real parents, though. No, they raised him. Did you make a phone call to Emerson 1-4534 on the day of the assassination? Emerson 14534. Who was it? I don't remember the phone number. I'm not able to give you that, Mr. Peterson. Well, then I can't remember. How about Riverside 26811? Riverside 26811? I don't know that number either. Do you recall any telephone calls which you made on November 22nd or 23rd? No, like I say, the only calls I probably made were around the hotel. All right, so here we go. Do you forget phone calls that you made? I don't. I don't forget phone calls. Ever. Do you forget phone calls? Do you call somebody and then 2 days later not be able to remember if you called them or not? Sure happens a lot in the Kennedy assassination, doesn't it? Maybe it was the 60s. Maybe people were just fucking stupid back then. I don't know. It's odd, though, isn't it? What time did you arrive at Galveston, to the best of your recollection? If we left Friday, it takes 4 hours. Probably left maybe about 5 or 6. Got there 11 or 12. So he's now saying it's Friday, and it took 4 hours to get from Dallas to Galveston. That sounds about right. 4 hours? What'd you do after arriving in Galveston? We made ourselves at home like we always do. Who was there when you arrived? Mr. and Mrs. McKenna, the family. Anyone besides Mr. and Mrs. McKenna? No, I don't think so. I don't remember. Did you make any telephone calls from Galveston? I don't think so. Did Mr. Wall make any telephone calls? Somebody called us, newspaper people, I think, out of Washington. Some magazine wanted to know some stuff, I think. What magazine was it? I have no idea. Some newspaper. Do you recall specifically the name of the man who called you? No. Did you talk to him? I think I did. Yes, I did talk to him. That's why I remember. I'm trying to think. To the best of your recollection, tell me specifically what you said to him and what he said to you. Well, just wanted to know, let me see, was it there or was it at the hotel? They wanted a time. I think it was Time or Life because the man in Life is located in Dallas. He just wanted to know if we had any pictures with Jack Ruby or anything we had done for a story. I told him we did not have anything, didn't bother with it. While you were in Galveston, did you receive any other telephone calls? Yes, I'm trying to think. Somebody from the newspaper. I believe it was in Washington. Some magazine or some newspaper. Breck probably will remember better than I do. He's got a better memory. God damn these people and their fucking memories. They wanted some information on Jack Ruby. I couldn't give them any. Aside from that call, did Breck Wall receive any telephone calls while you were in Galveston? I think he did. From whom? Well, the only one was from Jack Ruby. Tell me about that call. Jack was very upset about, when did he come in? It was in the evening sometime. What day? On the day before. Before what? Assassination. Before the assassination or before the shooting of Oswald? Before the shooting of Oswald. See, here we go. More who's on first going on, right? Because he doesn't know, because he wasn't there. Let me reread this. So, well, the only call was from Jack Ruby. He said, tell me about that call. Well, Jack was very upset about. When did it come in? It was in the evening sometime. What day? On the day before. Before what? Assassination. Before the assassination or before the shooting of Oswald? Before the shooting of Oswald. I'm getting them both mixed up. It was the day before Oswald's assassination or murder or whatever you want to call it. Jack called and was very upset about the assassination. Did you talk to Ruby on that? I don't think I did. I think Breck did. Did Breck Wall relate to you what that conversation was about? The call would have been Saturday. We went down there Friday. That's it. That's when it was. What was the telephone conversation between Jack Ruby and Breck Wall about? What I just told you. Breck kind of soothed them a little bit. Nothing you could do. All this baloney. Well, it happened, you know. Do you know whether Ruby said anything about intending to do anything? No, not to my knowledge. He didn't relate that to me. Just that he was very upset, very sick, crying and all that. That was it. All right, so let me pause real quick. So we have contradiction again. What is it that Breck Wall said that Jack Ruby called him about? He said that he called him about some dealings with the AGVA, right? There was some problems with the AGVA, and he was calling Breck about meeting with them on the 15th, but that's obviously bullshit, right? And what does that mean? Well, allegedly, according to official story, that Breck Wall left the number for the McKennas for Jack Ruby to call, but Peterson is already saying that they weren't really friends. After the incident that they had in 1960 or 61, where they performed Sticks and Stones at the Sovereign Club, which was becoming the Vegas Club, right? When they had that issue going on there, after that, they weren't friends, and he just saw them around from time to time, right? Well, that's obviously complete bullshit. Obviously complete bullshit, right? So Peterson is giving up the goods that Ruby is calling Breck Wall and that they're talking about the assassination. They're not talking about the AGVA or business stuff at all. And obviously the relationship between Breck Wall and Jack Ruby is much more important than just a former, business relationship, right? According to Peterson, he's calling him to console him about the fucking president being assassinated, which we know is bullshit. Jack Ruby was in on the assassination, knew it was happening, coordinated some of the shooters. So, this is all nonsense, right? This is all cover story. This is one of the themes that we get in the Warren Commission. All these guys who are involved with stuff are giving a very closely coordinated cover story. Was there any other subject discussed between Ruby and Breck Wall? No. Jack was very close to us. He made himself close to us, We were always in the headlines, always in the newspapers. We were very good friends with a lot of people in Dallas. He kind of tried to keep up with us, close. Okay, so that's not what was said originally by Joe Peterson, and that definitely is not what was said by Breck Wall. So we got some breakage in the story, right? He made himself close to us, We were always in the headlines. Anytime he had any problems or things like that, he always came to talk to us about it, or ideas for the club. He came to bug us about it, We were more or less successful in Dallas. Like I say, the best thing to do was just be nice and kind and stay away as much as possible. How could you be close to a guy but stay away as much as possible? Were there any other telephone calls which you made or which you received while you were in Galveston? I can't remember right now. I just don't remember. Were there any other telephone calls with which Breck Wall made or received while the two of you were in Galveston? You probably talked to Tony Zoppi. Zoppi? Zoppi, he is the amusement critic in the Dallas Morning News. We're very close friends. He probably talked to him about that. You don't recall specifically? You presume that might have happened. Yes. Are there any other calls you know about while you were in Galveston? No. When did you go back to Dallas? Probably Tuesday. I think we went back Tuesday. We had a show Tuesday. Ordinarily do. The show was closed for the weekend. It was Tuesday when we went back. I'm pretty sure. Have you ever talked to Jack Ruby after the day of the shooting of Oswald? No, I got a little letters from him. Note while he was in jail. When did you receive that note? It was a few days after the FBI questioned us. He wrote me a little thank you note because I spoke up for him. Like I'm telling you, he was all right in spite of him being no good, too. That's the best quote of all time. Quote, he was all right in spite of him being no good. When did the FBI question you? When we were in Dallas. When we were working at the hotel. Do you recall approximately the date they talked to you? Possibly a week, 2 weeks after the Oswald. Where were you living then? I was living at the hotel. Was the interview with the Federal Bureau of Investigation conducted at your hotel? Yes, it was at the hotel. Who was present at the time? I think it was the head of the FBI in Dallas. He was one Griffith. I believe his name was Griffith. Was anybody with him? There was somebody else sitting at the table. I'm not sure who it was. Tony Zoppi, I believe. Mr. Zoppi was present at the time of the interview? I believe. He was either there before or after. Tony always has breakfast there. We were all sitting at the table. Mr. Griffith came over. The special agent in charge there is Gordon Shanklin. This was Mr. Griffith? Was Mr. Shanklin present? I don't know. Was Mr. Wall present at the time Mr. Griffith talked to you? I don't know. He might have been. Seems to me 3 people were at the table. I'm trying to recollect. Breck might have been there. We eat breakfast together there usually. It was either breakfast or lunch. I'm never sure which it is because we always get up around 11 or 12. When Mr. Griffith or Mr. Griffin interviewed you, did you tell him about the telephone call that Jack Ruby made to Breck Wall? Yes, we told him all that. In fact, there's a little clearer than that. This is a little clearer than that. Everything is a little fresher in my mind. Are you sure you told him of that telephone call? I don't know if I did. I'm sure Breck did. Were you present when Breck Wall talked to the FBI? No, I don't think so. How can you say you're sure Breck Wall told him of the telephone call? No, because Breck's pretty much in the habit of doing the right thing. So that would be your presumption he did. Yes. You actually weren't there when Breck Wall talked to the FBI man. I'm pretty sure I wasn't. Do you recall whether or not you personally told the agent from the FBI about the telephone call from Ruby in Galveston? I'm pretty sure I did. Were you interviewed by the FBI more than once or once? Just the once. Although I felt it was more than once, talking to them going up and down in the elevators. There were 100 of them there. Couldn't miss them. Oh, that's hilarious. Just the once, although I felt it was more than once, talking to them going up and down in the elevators. There were 100 of them there. Couldn't miss them. Crazy. Do you know how Ruby knew or how to call you in Galveston? What he probably did was call the hotel to ask where we were, because we always left a telephone call where we were at. Why do you do that? Oh, it was our policy to do that. If they wanted to start the show or they had to know where we were at. When did you find out Ruby had shot Oswald? When we were watching TV. Where? Galveston, in the McKenna's home. Did you recognize Ruby then? Oh, yes. You could recognize Ruby? Couldn't miss it. What was your reaction on that? Shock. Unbelievable, really. Do you know whether Breck Wall called Phil Burleson from Galveston that day? I think he did. What was the purpose of that call? I have no idea. Did he discuss it with you before he made the call? No. Do you know whether he called Nancy Austin? He probably called everybody up when that happened. Do you know specifically whether the call was to Nancy Austin? I think probably, because of what he saw on the TV and about the show. Do you know Eddie Parker? Oh, yes. He used to work for us backstage at the Adolphus. Did he ever call him up? Probably, in reference to the show, because he had connection with Tressler in the show. Did Mr. Breck Wall call him up? He probably did. What was his purpose? In regards to the show, do you know Patricia Farmer? No. Clarence Voight? A lot of these people I might know if I see them. Breck knows. He's good on names. The name Clarence Vaught doesn't mean anything to you? No. What relatives, if any, does Tom McKenna have in Dallas? I don't know anything about them. Do you know R.D. Matthews? No, I don't remember. I might. Do you know anything about Jack Ruby's trip to Cuba? Nothing, only that I know that is when I read it and later in the papers. Do you know a man by the name of Henry Atchison? No. Or Henry Actison? No. I'm saying no to a lot of these. I may know them. Do you know anything about a telephone call to Mr. Atchison or Mr. Actison in Canada back in March of '64 that I made? Did you ever make such a call? Not that I remember. Did Breck Wall ever make such a call to your knowledge? He might have. I don't know. Canada? The only thing we had to do was a man who wanted to buy the show for one night and fly us up there. What was his name? Wall, W-O-H-L. He got in touch with us about a show. What part of Canada was he from? I don't recollect right now. What was his first name? I think it was Jack. Was he in Calgary, Alberta, Canada? That's it, Calgary. Some organization. He was trying to get us booked for this, whatever it was, what they celebrate. Was his name Wall, W-A-L-L? No, Breck Wall is my partner. This other was Wall, W-O-H-L. Wall? Maybe I'm spelling it wrong. Was he with you in the Adolphus Hotel? He comes to our hotel quite a lot. Was he with you in March of '64? Well, he stayed there at the hotel. He saw a show or two or three times. He talked to us about the chance of booking a show in Canada. We would get in touch with this organization he was with and let us know, which he did by letter. Did you ever work that deal out? No. Why not? Well, it just never materialized. How did he pronounce his name again? Wall, I believe it was. Phonetically, it sounds the same as wall, right? Right. He was from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's it. In fact, I think we still got that letter. I know it's Wall because I remarked about Breck Wall. Do you still have that letter? I'm pretty sure. Could you look around for that and send it to me? Sure. Let me write my name and address down for you so you can do that. Fine. If I don't have the letter, we could get in touch with the hotel. He always stays there. I'm sure they have records. And his first name was Jack. I'm sure it was Jack, yes. Here's my name and address in Washington. He was connected with a big oil company. If you can find the letter and send it to me, I'd be much obliged to you. Sure. What did you do immediately after the assassination, if you recall? Well, we checked the hotel about the show. Did you go down to the Dexter School Book Depository building? I think we did. Ran down to take a look. What was the purpose of that? Curiosity. Was that the only purpose? Yes, along with a couple thousand other people. Now, hold on a second. Now, if you'll recall from the testimony of Breck Wall, they went to the airport, right? They went to Love Field. So you got Breck Wall, who's allegedly not involved with the assassination, but he's really close with Jack Ruby, even though they state that they're not close to Jack Ruby, that he just kind of was best to not hang around him, but that they were real close to him, right? So you have all kinds of contradictory information. You have the contradiction on the time when the call made was at 2 o'clock. Could have been 5:30, sure, right? So now they went down to the Texas School Book Depository. So you got Breck Wall and Joe Peterson driving around between the Adolphus Hotel, which is downtown, right near the Carousel Club, which is only a couple blocks really away from the from Dealey Plaza. And then you've got these guys going to the Texas School Book Depository, and you got them going to Love Field, right? But what did they do first? They go to Love Field first because they missed them, right? They missed them as they were reviewing him from above. Then allegedly they go to Love Field. And then from Love Field, they go to the Texas School Book Depository. That sounds like a crock of bullshit. It sounds to me like they're driving people around. That's what it sounds to me like they did. All right, let me continue. Do you recall what your reaction was when Breck Wall received some telephone calls in Galveston from the Washington Post and from the Dallas Morning News and the Dallas Times-Herald? That is it, Washington Post. Well, I got a little angry, told him I had nothing to say anything over the phone, not say anything over the phone until we got back home. Why'd you tell him not to say anything over the phone until you got back home? Well, you don't know who you're talking to over the phone. Did you have any other reason in mind besides that? No, not at all. The only other one I could recognize was the Dallas Morning News people we knew. That was fine, but anybody else, I don't know who we were talking to. A lot of nuts would be calling you up. Did you know anything about the Ruby's troubles with the American Guild of Variety Artists? Jack had all kinds of problems and troubles with unions and everybody else. Jack was like every other struggling nightclub owner who was trying to get along the cheapest way he could. That was it. Does the telephone number Riverside 8-1434 in Dallas mean anything to you? Let me see. No, I don't know. Probably does, but I don't remember. Do you have anything to add which you think would be helpful to the President's Commission in any way? Nope. Prior to the time we went on the record here, Mr. Peterson, did you and I have a very brief conversation concerning your knowledge of Jack Ruby? Yes, we did. Have I covered those questions with a number of others during the course of the deposition on the record? Yes. And is the information which you gave to me on the record the same as what you told me off the record earlier? Yes. What I could remember. Wait a minute now. You said before. We've covered, have we not? Right. Everything on the record which we've covered before. Right. Under the rules of the President's Commission, Mr. Peterson, you have a right to read and sign the deposition if you want. Do you want to do that, or would you be willing to waive that reading and signing? And then they talk about that for a minute. Asked if you received a letter from the commission. And that about wraps it up for the testimony of Joe Peterson. So what did we get from the testimony of Joe Peterson? We have conflicting information that was provided by Breck Wall, right, in regards to why Jack Ruby called, in regards to the relationship with Jack Ruby. Obviously, in regards to the purpose of the trip, if there was a trip at all. Right? Because Jack Ruby was not in fucking Dallas that evening. He was in Galveston. He didn't get back until fucking 3 a.m. or some shit like that. So the call that came in from allegedly the Carousel Club, is that where it came in from? See, but I think I read some other things on the contradiction based on the timing of the telephone calls that were made from Breck Wall's room. Jim, let's see if we can pull everything on Breck Wall's room at the Adolphus and the phone calls made from there. Yeah, between this and the testimony of Breck Wall, there's all kinds of contradiction. I need to get more into the testimony of Tony Zoppi. I need to get into what this number is, Riverside 81434. Let me screenshot that. That's a phone number of some importance. They won't mention whose name it is attached to it. If it's a business, we should be able to find that on Google, believe it or not. So the next testimony here is the testimony, in order, is the testimony of Harry Olson, another associate of Jack Ruby. I'll look it over and see if there's any relation here, but I'm really more interested in going in the direction of debunking this Galveston trip. So that's going to do it for today, guys. Hey, if you're looking to get a free copy of my book signed, you can get one. All you got to do is go over to Substack, mybloodyhistory.substack.com, and pay for a full year, $50 over there at Substack, for my Bloody History World War II show, and I will send you a signed copy of my book for free. So that's it for me, guys, and I will be back tomorrow. Thank you.